Good morning. Welcome to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Gloria Liggett, and I'm a member of the worship ministry. Today, Drew Carter and I will be leading the service. Today, 5 of our Live Oak members, Jim and Zach Wells, Elias Soros, is it there? Jane Gray, and Helen Gordon will be sharing stories of their fathers. In this liberal religious community, we welcome all. Our generations join together to nurture spiritual growth and personal transformation.
Our service this morning is our reflections on Father's Day, and we have in mind here fathers that are here, as well as those that are missing, our mentors who have been the father figures in our lives. Our call to worship this morning is a reading from Wendell Berry. We clasp the hands of those that go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in dancing, and the larger circle yet of all creatures passing in and out of life who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it except in fragments.
For our meditation today, I chose something called These Are Our Dads by Amy Petrie Shaw. We recognize and honor today every dad who stood as their child shouted at them in anger and frustration. Every dad who suddenly realized their child might be right and was willing to listen. And every dad who honestly believed they were making the best choices they could. We honor every dad who screwed it up, got it wrong, tried again, got it right, and often went from being the dumbest soul alive to the pinnacle of brilliance and back again in one day, according to his children. These are our dads. We honor and recognize today all those who taught us what they knew and forgave us when we got it wrong. Those who wanted to teach us, but left too soon, or simply did not know how to teach us at all. These are our dads. We recognize and honor today all of the men who taught us what it meant to be honest, even when it was embarrassing, to tell the truth and admit to our faults, to be human. We recognize, too, those fathers who could not teach us these things because they did not know themselves, but who hoped and prayed that we would do better than they ever did. These are our dads. Today we recognize and honor all the men who have been there or tried to be there, no matter what. Those who have remained calm in a crisis, and those who could not remain calm, but did not run away. And those who did run away, but came back again, and those who never came back but always wished it could have been different. They're our dads, rich and poor, tall or short, slender as a pole or round as a basketball. They are the men who helped to raise us and those who formed us through their actions and their lack of actions. They are our dads, birth fathers and adoptive fathers, stepfathers and foster dads. Fathers who have no children themselves, but who step in to raise the child of a neighbor or a friend. Grandfathers and uncles. Single moms who have had to learn to go beyond motherhood. Trans dads who have given birth. Trans dads who didn't. Queer dads and gay dads and female partners willing to take on the role. They are our dads. Through love and hatred, joy and tears, addiction, mental health issues, perfect health, sickness, aging, wealth and poverty, absence and presence, they are our dads. They are because of us. We are because of them. They are our dads. Now get comfortable and let us join a short time of meditation.
Good morning. I'm Jim Wells.
And I'm Zach Wells.
And in case you're wondering, I'm the dad. Was that really that funny? My dad, Tom Wells, was born in Ohio in 1923. He grew up with 3 brothers on a farm in central Ohio. My dad was really proud of his family's history in that part of the country. His great-great-great-grandfather, Israel Wells, was a member of the first party of Europeans to settle in central Ohio. Israel Wells arrived in Granville, Ohio in 1805 to claim 100 acres granted to him as a Revolutionary War veteran. And he helped build the Congregational Church that still stands in that town. The family eventually settled in nearby Croton, Ohio, on a farm that's still in our family today. And Zach and I travel there every year to spend Christmas with our extended family. I don't remember my dad ever lecturing me about honesty or integrity or how to be a good person. It's certainly true that his parenting style predated the current trend for hands-on helicopter parenting. Honestly, I don't think that he and my mom even knew or maybe particularly cared where we were after school. But his style was actually a great antidote, retrospectively, to the hypervigilance that permeates modern parenting and in some circles of modern society. He simply modeled the behavior he expected of us kids. And in his own quiet, reserved way, he assured us of his unconditional love. That is the most important thing we needed growing up.
When I was a baby, my aunts and grandparents took care of me for about 6 months because my parents temporarily moved to Seattle so my mom could receive her cancer treatments. I don't remember much about that time back in Ohio, but now, whenever we visit the farm, I feel a sense of belonging that must be related to my time there when I was 1 year old. I have become a part of that family place, and the place has become a part of me. The memories of sitting together with my grandfather on his big screened-in front porch and just rocking gently materialize in my mind like they were yesterday. I think this was his way of getting me to doze off and to take a nap when I was being difficult. There wasn't much to see. Trees swaying in the breeze and the occasional car or tractor that passed by on the road. And the strongest feeling I have about those lazy afternoons is that there was no place my grandfather would have rather be than right there with me on that front porch. And every time, And every time we sat together on that front porch, I can appreciate that he really reminded me that I mattered. I can appreciate that now. And in the simplest acts of sharing, we found happiness.
My dad was known to all his grandkids as GG, or Grumpy Grandpa. And everyone was in on this joke because he really wasn't grumpy. He was maybe feisty, but he was not grumpy. My dad led a full life, and he had a quiet appreciation for the simple joys. And like all of us, he had his contradictions. For example, he was an early proponent of good exercise and good diet, and yet in his later years, the definition of good diet mysteriously expanded to include quite a lot of M&Ms. I really respect how my dad was deeply rooted in that farmland in central Ohio. I understand now how this affected me and my siblings and our kids. He and my mom provided us with the gift of a safe space. It was a spiritual service station where we could fill up with love and head back out into the world. And for all of that, I will say, thank you, Dad.
Elias Michael Soros. It's very difficult to talk about my father to a group of people that haven't had the experience of what it was to grow up close and far from this incredibly adventurous and sort of conflicting man. But I will try to synthesize the parts I see in me that come directly and indirectly from interactions with him. Elias Michael Soros was born in Thessaloniki, Greece in 1926. He grew up in a family that was not poor, but had barely enough to survive. When the Nazis invaded the north of Greece, my father enlisted in the army at 15. When the Germans got closer, my grandfather Michael took the family to Egypt, to where many Greeks that were ably left after the Nazis invaded. I don't know exactly when that happened, but that was the second phase of my father's life started. In Egypt, he did not go to school much. He became a hustler, finding all sorts of ways to earn a buck. Yes, a buck, because Egypt had huge contingents of Americans, British, and other nationals, and the dollar was one of the preferred currencies. He learned English quickly, as well as French and even Italian, although they were the enemies. He was very good with languages, and that is a talent I have tried to emulate as best as I could. He learned how to fix machines, boats, and got good at it, which gave him a chance to get better things that he could not normally afford. He was a handsome man, and according to my mom, a womanizer, having had many romantic relationships before meeting her. I think there's a picture of him in there. It was there in Alexandria that he met my mother and eventually got an offer to go work for Caterpillar in their new dealership in São Paulo, Brazil. My mom and him departed on a ship crossing the equator to a southern land very foreign to both, but his adventurous spirit saw opportunity. Welcome to Brazil. I think there's a picture going on a boat crossing the equator. They have this ritual crossing the equator when you go to southern hemisphere from the northern hemisphere. They said it was very hot too. My mom and him departed on a ship, and on a boat, but his adventurous spirit saw opportunity. They arrived in São Paulo, but the job offered to him at Caterpillar, an American company with a 50s work style in a land that was so full of opportunities, was not for my father. He did not stay long there. He quickly was offered an opportunity to go to a land to the north, near the Amazon, so new that at the time there was electricity for only a few hours a day. That was more his cup of tea. He convinced my mother to go against all her family's opinions and left the big city of São Paulo. They got married and went to Belém in the state of Pará. Welcome to Belém, a city at the end of the Amazon basin. Almost everything modern there was imported, legally from São Paulo and Rio, and illegally from the US via the Caribbean and Venezuela. My father was good with languages, and he did good there. My father became very successful, and eventually my sister and I were born there. When I turned 7, things got sour between him and my mother, and they eventually separated. That was a dark time in my memories. My mom, my sister, and I moved to São Paulo, a city far away in the south of Brazil. I could not pardon my father at the time, for in my view, having removed me from the land that I was born, leaving friends and things I was used to, was a punishment I had not deserved. I had pockets of good time with him when he would come to visit in São Paulo from his trips to Peoria, Illinois, and when I went to spend summers in Belém with him and my brothers. It's a picture of my brothers and I, and him looking at me, looking at us, very proud. Anyway, that was then. I made peace with that after I moved to the U.S. He remarried my godmother and got 2 brothers, and I got 2 brothers from his second marriage. When I moved to the U.S., I thought he would think it was a great idea that I was being an adventurer like him. But he did not think that I should have left Brazil, where in his view, life was a lot easier, and he told me I was on my own if I moved. Notwithstanding, I got a scholarship and worked my ass off to complete my degrees in Boston. Although he eventually saw I was serious about it and even helped me complete my degree, expecting I will go back. He came, well, sorry I didn't. He came from my graduation, and I know he was very proud of me then. Even Miles Davis was there. When Juana was born, I really wanted her to meet him because he was a very special person in my life. And he, I know, would have really appreciated connecting the circle of life. So I took her and we went to Belém. There's a couple pictures of Luana, small Luana and him. My father was a very complex man with a very good heart, appreciating people and always recognizing people's effort to become better than themselves, a survival approach to life. For him, life could be taken away in the next minute, so he lived life as this minute was his last. I was not there when he passed away, but I know he was blessed by not suffering much and being surrounded with people that loved him.
I'm Helen Gordon, not Jane. But we've done a little switcheroo here. My parents were very much scarred by the Great Depression. I was born in 1932, and their hard life was a great deal shaped by that hard experience. I was born in Salt Lake City because my mother couldn't afford to go to a hospital, and then my father, an atheist, had a little bit of challenge living in Salt Lake City as an atheist. He was disappointed in me because I didn't become an atheist, but becoming a Unitarian was almost as acceptable to him. His own Catholic upbringing led to his rebellious rejection of all religion, yet he didn't object to my going to the Mormon Sunday schools with my friends. I learned early on to sort out what I could and could not believe. He had all the rational arguments against the Bible and Christianity, but the Mormons had the loving community, people who took care of each other and welcomed kids like me. Dad believed strongly in education and advocated a broad spectrum of views, which is probably why he gave me a King James Bible with a concordance that would help me look things up. One of the parables in that Bible has provided some helpful wisdom to me. I quote, "And Jesus sat over against the treasury and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury. And many that were rich cast in much. And there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing. And he called unto him his disciples, and saith unto them, Verily I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast more in than all the rich men have cast into the treasury. For they did cast from their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even her living. Mark chapter 12, 41 to 44. Dad's love for his family, so hard for him to express, seemed outweighed by his demands for perfection and punishments with a leather belt when we slipped up. Yet I never doubted that he loved us, however rarely those mites of approval were granted. When my siblings and I were little, he would entertain us by playing songs on his harmonica, even teaching us some of the folk songs he knew. I delighted in some doll furniture he made for me and my sister, a little cupboard with doors that opened on tiny hinges. He was a very fine Finnish carpenter. As we grew older, the whole family often played anagrams on the dining room table, allowing the use of the dictionary except during our own turns. He and Mother taught us to love words, wordplay, and dictionaries. I'm sure many of you have seen some family member or friend struggle with alcoholism. We kids watched Dad's increasing deterioration from a happy drunk to a belligerent one. As time went on, the benders became an excuse to quarrel with his wife and slap her around. Gradually, the blows became beatings. Dad had some demons buried deep inside him, demons that turned him into a cruel husband when he became drunk enough to get violent. He had hated his mother, and when his senses became blurred, he seemed unable to tell the difference between the mother who rejected him and the wife who loved him. To avoid such confrontations when Dad didn't come home for dinner, we went to a movie and sneaked back into our home when Mother was sure Dad was asleep. Sometimes we stayed overnight with friends and neighbors, sneaking back into our home the next morning after making sure Dad was still sleeping off his hangover. But we weren't always able to avoid violence. The last episode I remember was so brutal that Mother had to be hospitalized with a broken nose and several broken ribs. Hearing her cries in the night, I ran to a neighbor for help. The husband came over to restrain my dad while the wife called for a police ambulance. I was relieved when Mother got a divorce. Only then did my dad join Alcoholics Anonymous and admit he needed help to stay sober. It took courage for an atheist to join Alcoholics Anonymous and appeal to a higher power, even though they qualified it as you understand him. It is to his credit that he did so, rationalizing that as you understand him could also include those who didn't understand him at all. Dad's contribution to my life was certainly greater than the 2 mites donated by the poor widow. But the parable has helped me to forgive the pain and the fear, the humiliation of having to sneak into our own home, and even somewhat the mistreatment of my mother. But every blow against my mother's body was a blow to the father-daughter relationship. I accept this legacy, diminished as it is, by reminding myself that whatever his shortcomings as a father, he had many admirable qualities as well, and he gave all of what he was able to give.
Memories of my father. Memories are elusive, memories are fragile, and as emerging cognitive and neuroscience studies tell us, memories are not static, but are instead malleable, contextual, and fallible. Yet we rely on our memories to ground us and guide us through our lives. Our memories serve as the scaffolding upon which our realities are built. They provide the light, shadow, and hue that color the way we experience an event, as well as the basis for the decisions that we make towards a future direction. And as we reminisce, At times, our memories unfurl like the petals of peonies, revealing previously undiscovered nuance or unmooring flashes of brilliance, pain, ecstasy, and fear. Memories I have of my father, Arnold Lee Gray, are infinite and complex. Apart from evoking images in my mind's eye, they're also imbued with rich and deep emotions. Some emotions I can clearly name and discern, while others I cannot put a word to. Instead, they remain encoded in some secret language of the soul, the kind of language that only makes sense in the universe of dreams. Nevertheless, I've tried to put my thoughts and feelings into words, and this morning I will take a moment to provide a brief sketch of the man who is my father, and with whom I've had a relationship for over 4 decades, but who still remains a mystery to me in many ways. Perhaps that's the way parents are to their children, or perhaps that's just the nature of our relationship. As a child, one's parents are omnipotent, omniscient. Adolescence and individuation prompts us to question our parents, challenge them as we largely fall from a state of innocence into a semi-aware state that our parents are indeed human. And as we develop into adulthood, we have a greater understanding of the difficulties of life and a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, and for many of us, parents. Hence, our perceptions become sharper and comprehension more profound. I can give you a few details about my father's early life. He was the 3rd child of Margaret Robbins Kling, who was a devout Methodist, pianist, and farmer, and Ford Gray, a farmer, laborer, and father. He attended a one-room schoolhouse until he was in 5th grade, after which he joined a more conventional school at the urging of his teacher. He was enriched and nurtured by the rural and bucolic upstate New York environment where he was raised, which I will add still has lots of dirt roads to this very day. But also frustrated by the paucity of opportunity in the small agricultural communities that surrounded him. My father's a dreamer. Sorry. He earned a scholarship to a small polytechnical institute in New York, Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, only to find out that chemistry was just not his thing. Instead, he got a bachelor's degree in accounting and then was quickly conscripted into the military. He served in the Marine Corps in Okinawa. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Upon his return to the US, he obtained a master's degree and started practicing as a corporate CPA. He then went on to marry my mother and have 4 children. That's where the story of fatherhood begins. Over the years, I've had many observations about my father. He's a person of few words, and like the environment he grew up in, replete with farmers cultivating crops. In his own silent and stoic way, unwavering, my father cultivated his children in the garden of his life, utilizing life's realities as our earthly elements. He provided a fertile, rich environment for us to be planted in, to grow roots. He nurtured our senses of self, independence, and unique identity. Like the sun, he coaxed us and encouraged us to reach higher, strive for his most lofty aspirations, blossom and take pride in all our actions. Like the wind, he provided us with opportunities to bend and become more supple, but not to break. Like the rain, he taught us to be open to opportunities, to our hearts, and to what lies ahead of us and within us, in order to become stronger and more actualized people. And like the snow, he demonstrated quiet and introspection, which are just as important as action. While we have our differences and have had plenty of fallings out over the years, our relationship isn't as close as I would desire, but he, of course, has never failed me. I will end with memory. The memory of me as a tiny 4-year-old. Yes, I was even shorter than I am now. It's possible. My feet perched atop my father's toes, gliding across the emerald green carpet of our living room. It was the 70s. Dancing to the music we were singing to each other, learning to understand each other's cues, and listening to our song. I can say with gratitude and sincerity that I still have the fortune of having my father. And we're still able to do that dance. Sorry.
Wisdom that leads to happiness and peace and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the need of all people. May it be so. Now join us in singing number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Oh, now? Wait. Every time. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its flame in our hearts.
We can bear